Welcome to July 2nd, 2025. It feels as though the future we once read about in science fiction novels and saw in blockbuster films has decided to arrive ahead of schedule, unannounced, and without an instruction manual. The world is currently a whirlwind of profound transformation. A place where the familiar signposts of yesterday seem to be rapidly replaced by the blinking, often confusing lights of tomorrow. Across every facet of our lives, from the devices in our pockets to the very air we breathe, powerful forces are reshaping our reality. Technology is not just advancing, it is leaping forward with a velocity that can feel both exhilarating and dizzying, promising unprecedented convenience while raising equally unprecedented questions about our society's direction and values. It is a time of immense opportunity and significant challenge, where staying informed is not just a casual pursuit, but a fundamental necessity for navigating the complex landscape ahead. The headlines of today read like a speculative report from a decade in the future. Yet they are the concrete reality of our present moment. We stand at a unique crossroads in human history, a point where multiple, once separate narratives are now converging into a single, complex global story. The digital world, the natural world, the financial world, and the world of human conflict are no longer distinct realms. They are deeply and inextricably linked. The technological breakthroughs fueling a new gold rush in artificial intelligence have direct and immediate consequences for international trade, national security, and the balance of global power. The decisions made in corporate boardrooms in Silicon Valley now echo in the halls of governments across continents, creating a web of interdependencies that is both powerful and incredibly fragile. This essay serves as your guide to these interconnected trends, a comprehensive briefing on the most critical developments shaping our world right now. We will journey through 5 key arenas of change that are defining this remarkable summer of 2025. Our exploration will begin in the fast-paced world of technology, where an AI boom is minting new corporate kings and futuristic foldable phones are challenging our very concept of a mobile device. From there, we will turn our attention to the sweltering reality of our planet's climate, examining the record-shattering heat waves that are forcing societies across the globe to confront a new, hotter normal. Each of these stories is a crucial piece of a much larger puzzle, and understanding them individually is the first step towards seeing the bigger picture. Our journey will not stop there. We will then dive into the turbulent waters of the global markets, where record highs are clashing with rising political risks, creating an atmosphere of both euphoric optimism and quiet anxiety. We will also step into the somber landscapes of global conflict, where fragile hopes for peace stand in stark contrast to the grim realities of ongoing wars that continue to claim lives and displace millions. Finally, we will shift our focus to the vibrant and often unpredictable world of culture and entertainment, where a late-night television institution is facing its final curtain call and a beloved children's toy is being reinvented for a new generation. These are the stories of our time, the narratives that will define the legacy of 2025. The central theme that weaves through all of these disparate stories is one of convergence and consequence. The events of July 2025 are not happening in isolation. They are part of a deeply interconnected global system, where a ripple in one area can quickly become a tidal wave in another. Consider the AI gold rush, a phenomenon driven by the insatiable demand for processing power. This technological surge isn't just creating wealth, it is redrawing geopolitical maps. The United States and China are locked in a high-stakes competition for semiconductor supremacy, a modern-day arms race where the weapons are microchips and the battlefield is the global supply chain. The recent decision by US regulators to ease export restrictions on certain AI chips to China is not merely a business transaction. It is a strategic move in a complex chess game involving trade negotiations, national security, and economic leverage. This interconnectedness extends dramatically to our environment. The same industrial and technological progress that powers our digital world also contributes to the carbon emissions warming our planet. The result is the summer of extremes we are now witnessing. From the scorching heat that has forced the closure of ancient landmarks in Athens to the vast heat dome suffocating major cities across the United States, the evidence of a changing climate is undeniable and visceral. People are not just reading about climate change, they are living it. They are searching for ways to cool their homes without air conditioning. They are watching as wildfires consume their landscapes, and they are feeling the direct health impacts of unprecedented temperatures. The climate crisis is no longer a future problem. It is a present-day emergency that demands an urgent global response. The financial markets, often seen as a barometer of global confidence, are reflecting this complex reality. On one hand, the excitement surrounding artificial intelligence has propelled stock indices like the Nasdaq to record heights, creating a sense of boundless prosperity. Investors are pouring money into companies like Nvidia, whose valuation has soared to an astronomical $4 trillion, a figure that surpasses the entire stock markets of some developed nations. Yet, beneath this bullish surface, there is a palpable sense of unease. The looming threat of a renewed trade war between the US and its allies, coupled with political instability and questions surrounding the independence of central banks, is prompting a flight to safety. The rising price of gold, a traditional safe haven asset, tells a story of caution amidst the celebration. This push and pull dynamic between progress and peril, hope and fear, is perhaps most starkly illustrated in the realm of international conflict. Even as diplomats prepare for crucial peace talks aimed at ending the protracted war between Russia and Ukraine, the fighting on the ground continues with brutal intensity. A potential diplomatic breakthrough in Turkey is juxtaposed with deadly missile strikes on civilian centers in Kiev. Similarly, in the Middle East, the 21-month-long war in Gaza has entered a new and devastating phase, with Israeli incursions into new areas escalating the humanitarian crisis, even as international pressure for a ceasefire mounts. These conflicts are not just regional disputes. They are global flashpoints, with far-reaching implications for energy markets, food security, and international law, demonstrating how localized violence can have a profound global impact. In a world defined by such rapid and often disruptive change, the simple act of staying informed becomes an act of empowerment. The goal of this essay is to provide clarity amidst the chaos, to connect the dots between seemingly unrelated events and offer a coherent narrative of the world as it is in July 2025. We will delve deeper than the surface-level headlines, exploring the underlying forces driving these trends. What does it truly mean when a single company, powered by AI, becomes more valuable than entire national economies? How is the average person, from a tourist in Greece to a farmer in the Balkans, experiencing the direct consequences of a global climate that has warmed by 1.5 degrees Celsius? These are the questions we will seek to answer. Our exploration will be structured to give you a comprehensive understanding of each critical domain. In Act 1, we will dissect the AI revolution, looking not only at the corporate winners and losers, but also at the tangible innovations like Samsung's new foldable phones that are beginning to reshape our daily interactions with technology. We will explore the public's growing fascination with AI, reflected in surging online searches for investment advice and practical applications. This is more than just a story about technology. It is a story about a fundamental shift in how we work, communicate, and even think. The implications of this shift are only just beginning to unfold, and understanding its origins is key to anticipating its future trajectory. Following our look at technology, Act 2 will immerse you in the summer of extremes. We will go beyond the temperature readings to examine the human stories behind the heat waves. We will hear from scientists who can now quantify how much more likely and intense these events have become due to human-caused climate change, making it clear that this is not a natural cycle, but a new reality of our own making. We will also look at the societal responses, from emergency government measures to the simple, creative ways people are trying to cope. This is a story about resilience and vulnerability, about the urgent need for adaptation in the face of a challenge that affects every single person on the planet. Finally, we will navigate the intricate worlds of global finance, geopolitical conflict, and popular culture in our subsequent acts. We will demystify the stock market's record-breaking rally and the political risks that threaten to derail it. We will provide a clear-eyed look at the prospects for peace in Ukraine and the escalating tragedy in Gaza. And we will explore how cultural shifts from the end of a late-night era to the rebirth of a pop culture icon reflect the broader anxieties and aspirations of our time. By the end of this journey, you will have a clearer, more nuanced understanding of the major forces shaping our world, equipping you to engage more thoughtfully with the news that defines our lives today and tomorrow. In the grand chronicle of technological revolutions, moments arise that fundamentally redefine the landscape of power and wealth. We are living through such a moment. This week, the company Nvidia etched its name into the history books, achieving a market valuation that was, until recently, the stuff of pure fantasy. For a brief, dizzying moment, it became the first corporation in history to be worth a staggering $4 trillion. This is not just a number on a stock ticker. It is a monumental symbol of a new economic era, one where the raw material of progress is no longer oil or steel, but computational power. The AI gold rush is in full swing, and Nvidia is not just selling the shovels and pickaxes, it is forging the very bedrock upon which this new world is being built. Their advanced AI chips are the engines driving everything from complex scientific research to the generative AI tools that are rapidly becoming a part of our daily lives. This incredible valuation reflects a seismic shift in market confidence. A collective bet by the global financial system that artificial intelligence is not merely a passing trend, but the next great pillar of the world economy. Nvidia's high-performance GPUs, or graphics processing units, have become the indispensable backbone of this revolution. They are the silent workhorses humming away in vast data centers across the globe, training the complex models that power our search engines, recommend our next purchase, and even help design new medicines. The company's dominance is so complete that its market capitalization now dwarfs the entire stock markets of several developed nations, a testament to how concentrated the sources of technological power have become. For investors and onlookers alike, Nvidia is no longer just a tech company, it is a barometer for the future itself. The public's fascination with this AI-fueled surge is palpable. Across the internet, search engines are lighting up with queries from ordinary people eager to understand and participate in this new gold rush. Phrases like how to invest in AI stocks and best AI tools for daily life have skyrocketed in popularity, indicating a widespread desire to move from being a passive observer to an active participant in this technological shift. People are not just curious about the abstract potential of AI. They are actively seeking ways to harness its power for personal and financial gain. This groundswell of interest suggests a societal tipping point, where a once niche technology has broken through into the mainstream consciousness, promising to reshape industries and create new forms of value in ways we are only just beginning to comprehend. This moment feels different from previous tech booms. It's less about a single killer app or a new social media platform, and more about a foundational technology that promises to elevate everything else. The AI revolution is a force multiplier, a wave that lifts all boats, or at least all boats equipped with the right digital sails. The story of Nvidia's meteoric rise is therefore more than just a business headline. It is the opening chapter of a new narrative about innovation, wealth, and power in the 21st. It signals that the digital frontier has expanded once again, and the race to claim a stake in it has become the most compelling and high-stakes endeavor of our time, attracting dreamers, builders, and speculators from every corner of the globe. AI Gold Rush is a global chess match, with the US and China vying for technological dominance. This week, the US eased its ban, letting Nvidia sell H20 AI chips to China, sparking a frenzy among Chinese tech giants and sending Nvidia's stock soaring. The move highlights how technology, commerce, and geopolitics are now inseparable, with chips as the new currency of power. The future of AI will be shaped as much by policymakers as by engineers, as nations race to control the tools of tomorrow. Samsung is redefining the smartphone with the Galaxy Z Fold7, lighter, slimmer, and packed with AI. Its 200-megapixel camera and smart features aim to make foldables mainstream, despite a higher price tag. The company teases a tri-foldable device, signaling its ambition to lead the next wave of mobile innovation. In a stagnant market, Samsung is betting big on flexibility and intelligence to shape the future of personal tech. The AI and foldable tech boom is changing how we live, work, and connect. Unboxing videos and reviews of the Fold 7 dominate online as users explore new AI-powered features and multitasking possibilities. Yet, the race for chip supremacy and AI leadership is deepening divides, influencing prices and access worldwide. As technology evolves, we each face a choice: embrace the latest innovations or wait for the next breakthrough to become essential. Amid tech's rapid rise, the planet is sounding alarms. 2024 is the hottest year on record, with 2025 following suit. Global temperatures have breached the critical 1.5 degrees C threshold, turning climate warnings into daily reality. Extreme heat waves, wildfires, and infrastructure failures are now the new normal, impacting lives and economies everywhere. The message is clear. Our actions have immediate global consequences that can no longer be ignored. Southern Europe, home to ancient wonders, is now a front line in the climate crisis. Athens closes the Acropolis as heat waves shatter records, while wildfires and drought transform landscapes across the Balkans. Daily life halts, tourism suffers, and vital resources like water vanish, revealing the region's vulnerability. This summer, Europe learns that no history or wealth can shield it from a planet pushed to the brink. Across the Atlantic, North America is facing its own version of a climate siege, a meteorological phenomenon known as a heat dome. This is not a gentle summer warmth. It is a vast and oppressive lid of high pressure that has parked itself over a huge swath of the United States, trapping scorching air and cranking up the heat to dangerous levels. From the sun-baked plains of the Southeast to the agricultural heartland of the Midwest, millions of Americans are sweltering under extreme conditions. Major cities like Dallas, Atlanta, and Kansas City have seen their heat index values soar past 105 degrees Fahrenheit and even touch a miserable 110 degrees Fahrenheit. This is a level of heat that turns simple outdoor activities into a significant health risk. What makes this particular heat wave so perilous is its relentless, round-the-clock nature. There is no escape, even after the sun goes down. In many affected areas, overnight low temperatures are failing to drop below 80 degrees Fahrenheit, setting new records for the warmest nights ever recorded. This lack of nighttime cooling is a critical factor that makes heat waves so deadly. The human body is deprived of the chance to recover from the stress of the daytime heat, leading to a cumulative strain that can be especially dangerous for the elderly, young children, and those with pre-existing health conditions. It is a 1-2 punch of daytime highs and nighttime lows that pushes both human physiology and our infrastructure to their breaking point. Climate scientists analyzing this event are unequivocal in their assessment. This is not your grandmother's heat wave. Using advanced attribution science, experts have determined that this specific mid-July heat wave was made at least 3 times more likely and significantly more intense because of the background warming caused by human carbon emissions. The statement from one climate scientist that has gone viral perfectly captures this reality. Climate change is turbocharging these extreme weather events. It takes a naturally occurring weather pattern and injects it with an extra dose of heat and humidity, turning what might have been a hot week into a prolonged and life-threatening ordeal. This scientific clarity removes all doubt, shifting the narrative from one of natural disaster to one of clear cause and effect. In response, a quiet sense of urgency is rippling through affected communities. Public health agencies are in overdrive, broadcasting simple but life-saving advice. Stay hydrated, seek out air-conditioned spaces, avoid the sun during peak hours, and check on vulnerable neighbors. Meanwhile, a search for solutions is trending online. Google has seen breakout searches for phrases like heat safety tips and how to stay cool without AC, reflecting the desperate reality for millions who lack access to reliable cooling. On social media, the mood is a strange mix of gallows humor and genuine alarm, with videos of people frying eggs on scorching Las Vegas sidewalks going viral alongside DIY tutorials for building makeshift air coolers. It is a portrait of a nation grappling, in real time, with the consequences of a climate it has helped to change. The record-shattering heat in Europe and North America is not happening in a vacuum. It is the local expression of a global fever. The data paints a stark and unambiguous picture of a planet in distress. 2024 set a new record as the hottest year, and 2025 is grimly following in its footsteps. Brief but significant moments when the global temperature has surpassed the 1.5 degrees Celsius warming threshold are alarm bells for the entire international community. This is the boundary that scientists have long warned represents a tipping point into a more dangerous climate system. To be crossing it now is a sign that the buffer we once had is gone. The planetary fever is not just a scientific curiosity. It is a condition manifesting in destructive ways all over the world. The impacts of this global temperature rise are concrete, costly, and deadly. They are not abstract projections in a report. They are real-world events that are already happening. The European heatwave in June was not just uncomfortable weather. It was a multi-country emergency that left many people dead, sparked devastating wildfires, and overwhelmed healthcare systems. The strain on critical infrastructure is becoming a recurring theme. Italy's experience with rolling blackouts, caused by air conditioner surge the power grid couldn't handle, is a cautionary tale that could soon be repeated as extreme heat becomes a regular feature of summer. This escalating crisis is forcing a global scramble for adaptation and survival. The surge in online searches for coping mechanisms is a grassroots indicator of widespread, urgent need. People are looking for any advantage they can get to protect themselves and their families. The advice from health agencies has become a familiar mantra. Drink water before you feel thirsty. Know the signs of heat stroke and heat exhaustion. Find shade and slow down. In a world of incredible technological complexity, the most effective survival strategies are often the most basic. This is a humbling reminder that for all our innovation, we remain fundamentally vulnerable to natural systems. Ultimately, the summer of extremes is a powerful call to action. It demonstrates that heat is not a soft, gentle threat. It is a silent killer that must be taken seriously. The images of melting asphalt, the stories of exhausted firefighters, and the statistics of record-breaking temperatures all point to the same conclusion. We are in a new and more dangerous climate era. As individuals and as a global community, the challenge is no longer just about preventing future warming, but about surviving the warming that is already here. The tips and tricks shared in comment sections and social media are more than just life hacks. They are small acts of collective resilience in the face of a truly global challenge. Global financial markets are currently a spectacle of breathtaking confidence, a place where optimism seems to have conquered all fear. On Wall Street, the mood is nothing short of euphoric. Key stock indices like the S&P 500 and the tech-heavy Nasdaq have been spending the summer months dancing at the edge of their all-time records, propelled by a powerful wave of investor enthusiasm. This week kicked off with another gentle climb as traders drew encouragement from a string of surprisingly strong corporate earnings reports and a growing hope that the Federal Reserve, the U.S. central bank, might finally be ready to ease up on its campaign of interest rate hikes. It feels like a perfect summer rally, where the path of least resistance is relentlessly upward. The primary engine driving this powerful bull market is, without a doubt, the same force reshaping the technology landscape, the artificial intelligence boom. The Nasdaq, in particular, has been supercharged by the incredible performance of the big names in AI, a trend we covered earlier. The market's hunger for AI-related stocks is insatiable. This week is shaping up to be a pivotal test of that sentiment, with earnings results due from some of the most influential companies in the world. Tech titans Alphabet and Tesla, two members of the famed Magnificent Seven group of mega-cap stocks, are on deck to report their quarterly performance, alongside industry stalwarts like IBM and Intel. So far, the earnings season has been a story of pleasant surprises, with many companies beating expectations and adding more fuel to the market's fire. This pervasive sense of optimism has created a distinct atmosphere on trading floors and in financial forums. As one prominent portfolio manager recently noted, there is a powerful "don't fight the trend" mentality taking hold. Classic summertime sentiment where investors feel it is safer to ride the wave of momentum than to bet against it. The fear of missing out on further gains is palpable, encouraging more and more capital to flow into stocks. This self-reinforcing cycle, where rising prices attract more buyers, which in turn pushes prices even higher, has given the current rally a feeling of unstoppable force. It is a market that seems to shrug off bad news and eagerly embrace any hint of good news. However, experienced market watchers know that such moments of unbridled optimism are often the most precarious. The market is like a performer on a high wire, balancing gracefully for all to see, but with the potential for a sudden and dramatic fall. The higher it climbs, the more spectacular the potential drop becomes. While the AI-powered narrative is undeniably compelling, it is also concentrating risk into a relatively small number of highly valued companies. The current market rally is a thrilling spectacle, but it is one that requires a steady nerve and a constant awareness of the significant risks that lie just beneath the surface of the celebratory headlines waiting for their moment to emerge. While the bulls are running free on Wall Street, a long and ominous shadow is being cast from the world of politics and international relations. It is a shadow filled with enough uncertainty to make even the most confident investor nervous. The most immediate source of this anxiety is the looming threat of a renewed global trade war. August 1st has been circled in red on every trader's calendar, marking a critical deadline for US tariffs. Negotiations are happening behind the scenes, but the public rhetoric has been increasingly aggressive. President Trump, now back in the White House for his second term, is ramping up the pressure on America's trading partners, threatening a new, punishing round of tariffs if his demands are not met. This aggressive posture is not being ignored. The European Union, a primary target of the tariff threats, is already preparing its response, drafting a list of potential countermeasures that would target American goods. This creates the grim prospect of a tit-for-tat escalation, a transatlantic stare-down that could disrupt global supply chains, increase costs for businesses, and ultimately harm consumers on both sides of the ocean. The impact of this tension is already visible in the markets. While US stocks have been climbing, their European counterparts have slipped, weighed down by the uncertainty of a potential trade conflict with their largest economic partner. The currency markets have also been roiled, with the Japanese yen strengthening after recent elections, adding another layer of complexity for global investors to navigate. The political tremors are not just international, they are also rattling the very foundations of the US financial system. In a move that sent a collective gasp through the economic community, reports have emerged that President Trump has privately pondered the idea of firing Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell. The Federal Reserve is designed to be independent from political pressure, allowing it to make difficult decisions about interest rates based on economic data, not electoral cycles. The mere suggestion that a president might try to fire its chairman for political reasons raises profound questions about the future of that independence, creating a level of institutional risk that the markets find deeply unsettling. The market's reaction to this news was subtle but significant, a clear sign of underlying anxiety. The yields on US Treasury bonds, which are considered one of the safest investments in the world, dipped as investors sought refuge from the uncertainty. This flight to safety is a classic indicator of fear. It shows that while the stock market may be celebrating the AI boom, a quieter, more cautious segment of the investment world is hedging its bets, preparing for a future where political whims could destabilize the carefully balanced economic order. This political shadow is a powerful counter-narrative to the market's euphoria, a reminder that the decisions made in Washington, D.C. can be just as impactful as those made in Silicon Valley. Amidst the roar of the stock market rally, another asset is making a move, but it is doing so with a quiet, cautionary whisper. The price of gold, the world's oldest and most trusted safe haven asset, has climbed to a 5-week high. This is a significant and telling development. When investors flock to gold, it is rarely a sign of unbridled optimism. Instead, it is often a signal of deep-seated anxiety, a precautionary measure taken by those who fear that the good times may not last. The rising price of gold is like a barometer detecting a drop in atmospheric pressure before the storm arrives. It tells us that not everyone is convinced by the market's celebratory mood. The demand for gold reveals the fundamental push-pull dynamic that is defining the current financial landscape. On one side, you have the powerful pull of the AI-driven tech rally and strong corporate earnings, which are encouraging investors to take on more risk in pursuit of high returns. This is the force pushing stock markets to their record highs. On the other side, you have the powerful push of geopolitical risk, the trade war drums, the political uncertainty at the Federal Reserve, and the ongoing global conflicts. This is the force pushing cautious investors toward the safety and stability of tangible assets like gold, which tend to hold their value during times of turmoil. The market is being stretched between these two opposing forces. This tension is also being influenced by other critical economic data points. The price of oil and the latest inflation figures are being watched with hawk-like intensity by investors and central bankers around the world. These numbers will be crucial in determining the future path of monetary policy. If inflation remains stubbornly high, it could force central banks to resume their interest rate hikes, a move that would almost certainly put a damper on the stock market rally. If inflation shows signs of cooling, it could give them the green light to ease off, potentially fueling even more optimism. Every new data point is a piece of a complex puzzle that traders are desperately trying to solve. It is no wonder, then, that financial forums and social media are buzzing with anxious questions from retail investors. People are asking, how should I invest when the market is at its peak, and is a major correction coming soon? These questions reflect a widespread understanding that trees do not grow to the sky, and that market cycles inevitably turn. The current environment calls for a balanced approach, one that acknowledges the powerful momentum in the market while also respecting the very real risks that are gathering on the horizon. The quiet rise of gold is a prudent warning that in the world of money, it is wise to hope for the best, but always be prepared for the worst. In the somber theater of global conflict, where narratives are often written in blood and punctuated by explosions, the faintest whisper of diplomacy can sound like a roar. This week, such a whisper emerged from the heart of Eastern Europe. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky announced that new, direct peace talks with Russia are scheduled to take place this Wednesday in Turkey. This development marks a significant, if tentative, shift in the grueling war that has ravaged the region. These would be the first face-to-face negotiations between the two warring nations in over 7 long weeks, a period marked by relentless fighting and escalating rhetoric. President Zelensky, in his announcement, stressed the urgent need to inject new momentum into the diplomatic process, a clear signal of his eagerness to explore any possible path that might lead toward a ceasefire and an end to the bloodshed. However, the bridge of diplomacy being built in Istanbul is a fragile one, constructed over a raging sea of fire. Hopes for a swift breakthrough were almost immediately tempered by the Kremlin. A spokesperson for Moscow was quick to publicly state that the two sides continue to hold what they described as diametrically opposed positions on the fundamental issues required to end the war. This blunt assessment serves as a stark reminder of the immense chasm that still separates their core demands. Ukraine remains steadfast in its insistence that any lasting peace must begin with a complete withdrawal of Russian forces from all occupied territories. Russia, on the other hand, appears just as determined to solidify its control over the land it has seized, viewing these gains as non-negotiable facts on the ground. Despite the vast distance between their official stances, the mere agreement to meet is a crucial development. The agenda for the talks reveals a focus on immediate human suffering alongside long-term political solutions. From the Ukrainian side, the priority is to address pressing humanitarian crises that have been a horrific feature of the conflict. This includes securing the return of thousands of prisoners of war and, most poignantly, the repatriation of Ukrainian children who have been forcibly deported to Russia, an issue that has drawn widespread international condemnation. Furthermore, the Ukrainian delegation hopes to lay the groundwork for an eventual and much-needed summit between President Zelensky and Russian President Vladimir Putin, believing that only a direct meeting between the two leaders can unlock a true resolution. Yet, as the diplomats prepare their briefcases and talking points, the grim reality of the war continues unabated, a brutal counterpoint to the quiet language of negotiation. In a tragically familiar pattern, just hours after the talks were announced, the night sky over Ukraine was once again lit up by a barrage of Russian missiles and explosive drones. The attacks targeted several cities, and in the capital of Kyiv, at least 2 civilians were killed as they slept. Ukraine, in turn, launched its own long-range drone strikes against targets inside Russia. This cycle of violence is a heartbreaking reminder that every single day without a ceasefire results in more lost lives, more shattered families, and more destruction, even as the world holds its breath and hopes for a glimmer of progress from the negotiating table. The upcoming peace talks are not happening in a vacuum. They are being conducted under the immense shadow of external pressure, particularly from the United States. In a significant foreign policy move, President Trump is now leaning heavily on the Russian government to demonstrate tangible progress toward ending the conflict. This pressure is not merely rhetorical. It comes with a ticking clock and a severe economic threat. The White House has issued a stark ultimatum: if a credible peace deal is not reached, a sweeping new package of sanctions will be imposed in just 50 days. This is not just a threat against Russia. The sanctions would also target any country found to be purchasing Russian exports, dramatically raising the stakes for nations that have tried to remain neutral. This ultimatum adds a powerful and unpredictable element to the delicate diplomatic dance. It effectively places a deadline on the peace process, creating a sense of urgency that could either catalyze a breakthrough or force one side to walk away from the table. For Russia, the threat of these secondary sanctions is particularly potent, as it could cripple its ability to fund its war effort by cutting off vital revenue streams from its remaining trading partners. For Ukraine, the American pressure provides a degree of leverage it might not otherwise have, reinforcing its position that the international community expects a just and lasting resolution. The 50-day countdown will be watched closely by capitals around the world, as its outcome could reshape the global economic and political landscape. This direct and aggressive intervention from the Trump administration marks a significant shift in the international dynamics of the conflict. It reflects a strategy that prioritizes a swift conclusion to the war, driven perhaps by a desire to reduce American financial commitments and refocus on domestic issues. However, this approach is not without its risks. By putting such a firm deadline on the negotiations, it could inadvertently force a premature or unstable agreement that fails to address the root causes of the conflict, potentially sowing the seeds for future violence. The success or failure of this high-stakes gambit will depend on whether the threat of economic pain is enough to overcome the deeply entrenched political objectives of the warring parties. Ultimately, the combination of direct talks and external pressure creates a moment of both opportunity and peril. The world will be watching the proceedings in Turkey not just as a bilateral negotiation between Russia and Ukraine, but as a test of this new, more forceful brand of American diplomacy. The hope is that the ticking clock will concentrate minds and encourage the compromises necessary for peace. The fear is that it could backfire, leading to a collapse in talks and an even more intense and desperate phase of the war. For the people of Ukraine, who continue to endure the daily horrors of the conflict, the outcome of these next 50 days carries the weight of life and death. As the world focuses on the fragile hope for peace in Europe, another long and brutal conflict in the Middle East continues to spiral into a deeper state of tragedy. The war in Gaza, which began with a brutal attack in 2023, has now been raging for 21 agonizing months, and recent days have seen a worrying escalation in the fighting. For the first time, Israeli tanks have pushed deep into new areas of Deir al Balah, a city in central Gaza that had previously been a relative refuge for displaced families. Israeli military sources have stated that they believe Hamas may be holding some of the remaining hostages in this area, justifying the ground incursion as a necessary operation to secure their release and dismantle the militant group's infrastructure. This new military push has been fierce and devastating for the civilian population trapped in the area. The narrow streets of Deir al Balah have become a new front line, with local medics reporting that tank shells have struck residential homes and even mosques, places where many families were sheltering. In the initial hours of the incursion, at least 3 Palestinian civilians were confirmed killed, with many more wounded by shrapnel and collapsing buildings. The images flooding out of the city on social media paint a grim and familiar picture of chaos and terror. Families fleeing with what few possessions they can carry, plumes of smoke rising over the skyline, and overwhelmed medics struggling to treat the injured in poorly supplied clinics. The humanitarian toll of this latest escalation has drawn sharp condemnation from international organizations that are struggling to operate in the war-torn enclave. A spokesperson for the United Nations raised the alarm after several UN guest houses in Deir al Balah were struck by the shelling, despite the fact that the UN had provided their precise coordinates to the Israeli military to avoid such attacks. In an even more alarming incident, the World Health Organization reported that Israeli forces had raided one of its compounds, detaining several staff members and their families. While most were later released, one WHO employee remains in custody, an act the organization has blasted as a violation of international humanitarian law. This intensifying violence on the ground is casting a dark shadow over any prospect for a ceasefire. Hamas, the militant group that governs Gaza, has issued a stark warning that the rising death toll and the deepening hunger crisis across the enclave will completely derail the already faltering negotiations. According to Gaza's health officials, more than 130 Palestinians have been killed by airstrikes and gunfire in just the last 24 hours alone. Israel maintains that its operations are precisely targeted at Hamas fighters and their infrastructure, and that it takes steps to avoid civilian harm. However, the sheer scale of the collateral damage continues to draw intense criticism from the international community, deepening the wound of a conflict with no end in sight. Conflict in Gaza is not contained within its borders. Its echoes reverberate across the entire Middle East, threatening to ignite a much wider regional conflagration. The northern border of Israel remains a tense and active front, with daily skirmishes between the Israeli military and Hezbollah, the powerful Iran-backed militant group based in Lebanon. These cross-border exchanges of rocket fire and drone strikes have forced the evacuation of tens of thousands of civilians on both sides and carry the constant risk of escalating into a full-scale war between Israel and Hezbollah, a conflict that would be far more destructive than the current war in Gaza. The international community, particularly the United States, has been working to prevent this scenario, but the situation remains on a knife's edge. Adding to the regional tension is the ever-present shadow of Iran, which supports both Hamas and Hezbollah. Concerns about Iran's direct involvement continue to simmer in the background, with every escalation raising the question of how Tehran might respond. This wider geopolitical dimension complicates any potential resolution, as the conflict is not simply between Israel and Palestinian militants, but is also a proxy battle in a much larger struggle for influence in the Middle East. In a moment of candid diplomacy, a US official recently commented that Washington cannot compel Israel to change its military tactics on the Lebanon front, a statement that underscores the limits of American influence and the volatile autonomy of the regional actors. In this tense and tragic landscape, the search for peace feels like a desperate and often futile endeavor. The cycle of violence has become deeply entrenched, with each attack fueling the justification for the next. Ceasefire negotiations have repeatedly broken down, with each side accusing the other of acting in bad faith and violating previous agreements. Hamas points to the rising death toll and the humanitarian catastrophe in Gaza as evidence that Israel is not serious about peace, while Israel points to the continued holding of hostages and rocket fire from Hamas as evidence that the militant group cannot be trusted. The result is a deadly stalemate where the only certainty is more suffering for the civilians caught in the middle. Amidst the despair, the only glimmers of hope come from the relentless pressure being applied by international bodies and humanitarian organizations. The calls for, at the very least, temporary humanitarian pauses to allow aid to enter Gaza and for the wounded to be evacuated are growing louder. The stories of horror and resilience emerging from the conflict zones in both Ukraine and Gaza serve as a powerful testament to the profound human cost of war. While diplomats talk and generals plan, it is ordinary people who bear the unbearable burden of these conflicts. The world watches, hoping that the search for peace, however difficult, will one day triumph over the drums of war. Finally, let's shift our focus from the weighty matters of global politics and economics to the vibrant and often surprising world of culture and entertainment, where a seismic shockwave is currently rocking the landscape of American television. In a move that left audiences and industry insiders completely stunned, the network CBS announced that it is canceling The Late Show with Stephen Colbert, bringing an end to the iconic late-night program next year. This is not just the end of a show, it is the end of an era. For decades, first with the legendary David Letterman, and then with the sharp, satirical wit of Colbert, the program has been a nightly ritual for millions, a place for laughter, celebrity interviews, and fearless political commentary. The news of its demise is a monumental event in popular culture. The official reason provided by CBS for this shocking decision was purely financial. Network executives claimed that despite its strong ratings, the show was simply too expensive to produce, allegedly losing somewhere between $40 and $50 million a year. However, the timing of the announcement has raised more than a few eyebrows and fueled a storm of speculation. Just days before the cancellation was made public, Stephen Colbert had used his platform to openly mock CBS's parent company Paramount for a highly controversial $16 million settlement it had paid to former President Trump related to a story on its flagship news program 60 Minutes. Many are now wondering if Colbert's pointed on-air critique was the final straw that ruffled powerful corporate feathers. Never one to shy away from a fight, Colbert addressed the elephant in the room on his very next show, and he did so in his signature style, blending righteous anger with theatrical flair. With a mischievous glint in his eye, he quipped to his cheering audience that cancel culture has gone too far. "They're canceling my show." He then delivered a deadpan punchline, stating that CBS had made one critical mistake: they left me alive. With a dramatic flourish, he declared that for the next 10 months until the final show airs, the gloves were officially off. It was a clear and defiant promise that he intends to use his remaining time on air to be more unfiltered and outspoken than ever before. This declaration has turned the final season of The Late Show into must-watch television. In a moment that immediately went viral, Colbert directly responded to a gloating social media post from former President Trump by looking straight into the camera and delivering a sharply satirical, bleep-filled message. The internet and his studio audience erupted. This bold move was met with a wave of solidarity from his peers. Late-night hosts like Jon Stewart, Jimmy Fallon, and John Oliver all gave Colbert supportive shout-outs in their monologues, creating a sense of a late-night community rallying to defone. It seems that Colbert's final monologue will be a 10-month-long spectacle of glorious, no-holds-barred television. While one cultural institution is preparing for its final bow, another is getting ready for an exciting new act. The Barbie phenomenon, which painted the world pink and dominated the box office during the Barbenheimer summer of 2023, is making a triumphant return to the spotlight, but with a fascinating and unexpected twist. While fans have been eagerly awaiting news of a potential live-action sequel starring Margot Robbie, Mattel has just announced a completely different and perhaps even more ambitious project. The toy company is partnering with Illumination, the animation powerhouse studio behind the wildly successful Despicable Me franchise, to create a brand new, feature-length animated Barbie film destined for theaters. This is a significant strategic move for the Barbie brand. It is crucial to note that this upcoming animated feature is not a sequel to Greta Gerwig's critically acclaimed live-action blockbuster. Instead, it will be the first ever theatrically released animated movie centered on the iconic doll, marking a bold new direction for the franchise. While specific details about the plot and a release date remain tightly under wraps, the partnership with Illumination has fans buzzing with curiosity. The studio is renowned for its family-friendly blockbusters, vibrant animation style, and knack for creating beloved characters, suggesting this new Barbie adventure will likely feature a blend of heart, humor, and maybe even a few Minion-style antics. The motivation behind this move is crystal clear. Mattel's CEO has been very open about the company's new strategy to create movies that are not just films, but cultural events. The 2023 Barbie movie achieved that goal beyond their wildest dreams, and now they are determined to build on that incredible momentum. By launching a separate animated franchise, Mattel is cleverly expanding the Barbie cinematic universe. This allows them to keep the brand at the forefront of the cultural conversation and engage a new generation of young fans, all while giving Greta Gerwig and Margot Robbie the time and creative space they need to mull over a potential live-action sequel down the road. It's a savvy plan to have their pink cake and eat it too. This announcement signals the potential birth of a full-fledged Barbieverse. The new animated film could serve as a launching pad for a whole universe of stories, opening the door to spin-offs featuring other beloved characters from the Barbie line, and perhaps even crossovers with other major Mattel properties like Hot Wheels or Polly Pocket. For fans of the iconic toy, it's a time of exciting possibilities. Get ready for a new wave of pink, potentially filled with catchy musical numbers and a fresh dose of animated charm. Barbie's next act is just beginning, and it promises to be as imaginative and ambitious as the doll herself. As we wrap up our cultural tour, let's look at a final piece of trending news that blurs the line between entertainment and reality. A story that feels like it has been lifted directly from the pages of a science fiction novel. In a development that has captured the imagination of the world, scientists in Switzerland have announced a groundbreaking achievement. They have developed a new type of invisibility-cloak material. Yes, you read that correctly. The technology that has been a staple of fantasy and sci-fi for generations, most famously wielded by Harry Potter, is now one significant step closer to becoming a reality. This is not a magic trick. It is a marvel of advanced physics and materials science, and it's a powerful reminder that the future is now. The details of the science are, of course, incredibly complex, involving manipulating light waves in ways that were previously thought to be impossible. However, the potential implications are staggering and extend far beyond the realm of fantasy. While the initial prototypes are small and limited, the breakthrough represents a proof of concept that could revolutionize countless fields. Imagine surgical tools that could be made invisible to allow doctors a clearer view, or sensor-hiding technology that could transform military reconnaissance and stealth operations. The development is a testament to human ingenuity and our relentless quest to push the boundaries of what is possible, turning the stuff of dreams into tangible, world-changing technology. This incredible scientific headline provides a much-needed dose of wonder and optimism in a news cycle often dominated by conflict and crisis. It serves as a powerful counterpoint to stories of political division and environmental distress, reminding us that humanity is also capable of profound creativity and discovery. The news has sparked a wave of excitement online, with people marveling at the real-life magic of science and playfully debating the first thing they would do with an invisibility cloak. It's a story that inspires curiosity and awe, tapping into a universal fascination with the unknown and the seemingly impossible. It's a reminder that not all of the day's breaking news has to be about doom and gloom. From Stephen Colbert's defiant last stand on late-night television to Barbie's ambitious animated comeback and the dawn of real-world invisibility, it's clear that our cultural and scientific landscapes are in a constant state of flux. Moments of closure are met with new beginnings, and the fictions that once entertained us are slowly becoming the facts that define our future. This unpredictability is precisely what makes our world so endlessly fascinating. It keeps us on our toes, encouraging us to stay curious, to question what we see, and to marvel at the incredible pace of change. The most exciting story is always the one that is just about to unfold. As we step back and survey the sprawling, chaotic, and endlessly fascinating landscape of July 2025, one truth becomes abundantly clear. We are living through an era of profound and accelerated change. The stories we have explored, from the dizzying ascent of AI to the scorching reality of our climate, from euphoric markets to fractured peace processes and seismic cultural shifts, are not separate, isolated events. They are the interwoven chapters of a single, unfolding global narrative. The $4 trillion valuation of a chipmaker is not just a business story. It is a climate story, a geopolitical story, and a story about the future of work. The closing of an ancient monument due to heat is not just a travel story. It is an economic story, a public health story, and a story about our collective responsibility to the planet. This deep-seated interconnectedness is the defining feature of our time. The world of 2025 is one of stark and powerful contradictions. It is a world where humanity is capable of creating technology that can mimic intelligence and even render objects invisible, yet simultaneously struggles to prevent the atmosphere from becoming dangerously hot. It is a world where financial markets can generate unprecedented wealth at the very same moment that political instability threatens to unravel the entire system. We see fragile hopes for peace talks existing alongside the brutal reality of ongoing war. We watch a beloved television host prepare for his final, defiant monologue while a classic children's toy is being reborn for a new cinematic universe. This constant tension between creation and destruction, optimism and anxiety, is what makes navigating our present moment so challenging and so utterly compelling. The trends we are witnessing are more than just fleeting headlines. They are powerful currents that are actively shaping the world our children will inherit. The AI revolution is fundamentally altering the nature of power, concentrating it in the hands of a few corporations and nations that control the flow of data and processing power. The climate crisis is forcing a global reckoning with the consequences of our industrial past and demanding a radical reimagining of our energy systems, our cities, and our way of life. These are not small, incremental adjustments. They are tectonic shifts that are rearranging the very foundations of our society, and we are all living through the tremors. This moment in history, therefore, demands more from us than passive observation. It demands engagement. It requires us to see the connections between the phone in our pocket and the chip wars on the other side of the world, to understand how the temperature outside our window is linked to decisions made in boardrooms and parliaments decades ago. The narrative of our time is complex, and at times it can feel overwhelming. But it is also a story that we are all a part of, with the potential to influence its direction through our awareness, our choices, and our collective actions. The story of 2025 is still being written, and its final chapters remain unread. As we conclude this journey through the defining trends of our time, the ultimate takeaway is not one of certainty, but one of curiosity. The future is not a fixed destination that we are hurtling toward. It is a dynamic and malleable space that is being shaped day by day by the forces we have discussed. Which of these trends will accelerate and which will fade away? Will the AI boom lead to a new era of shared prosperity, or will it deepen existing inequalities? Will the foldable phone become the new standard, or will it be remembered as an expensive gimmick? Will Stephen Colbert's final, no-holds-barred season of television spark a new movement of media accountability, or will it be a final, fiery spectacle before a new, sanitized era of late-night TV begins? The answers to these questions are not yet known, and that is precisely what makes them so important. We encourage you to carry this spirit of inquiry forward. Challenge the narratives you are presented with, dig deeper than the headlines, and ask how the major stories of our day connect to one another and to your own life. The most surprising story from our roundup might be the one that reveals the most about our collective priorities and our hidden anxieties. Was it the mind-boggling financial power of Nvidia, the tangible reality of a major landmark closing due to heat, the brazen political defiance of a late-night host, or the quiet, almost magical news of a real-life invisibility cloak. Your perspective matters in this global conversation. The trends that capture our collective attention are the ones that are most likely to receive resources, inspire innovation, and drive political action. By engaging with these topics, by discussing them with friends and family, and by sharing your thoughts, you contribute to the cultural and intellectual currents that will ultimately determine our shared path. The world is changing at a breakneck pace, and while that can be daunting, it is also an invitation to learn, to adapt, and to participate in the shaping of what comes next. The most valuable tool we have in an age of uncertainty is a curious and informed mind. Thank you for joining us on this comprehensive tour of the world as it stands on July 22nd, 2025. We hope this exploration has provided you with a clearer understanding of the interconnected forces that are defining our present and building our future. We urge you to stay informed, to stay engaged, and above all, to stay curious. The story is far from over, and the most interesting chapters are likely yet to come. Which of these unfolding narratives will you be following most closely? The answer to that question will help determine the kind of world we will all be living in tomorrow.